Game week has arrived here in Columbus. Number 1 versus number 3 in the shoot. Texas at Ohio State for the 5th time ever. It's a rematch of the 2025 Cotton Bowl, which Ohio State won 28-14. I don't know how much that matters in this game because there are so many players who did not play in that game who are going to be playing in this game on Saturday. As you're watching this, I'm Stephen Means and Stefan Krajisnik. This is a video version of Buckeye Talk. We're talking with Ryan Day on Tuesday about a lot of different things heading into this game because now it's all ball talk. We're not going to be talking about who's the starting left tackle. We know who that is. We know the starting quarterback. So we're going to start a new series every week of just what you're thinking. What do you want to ask Ryan Day? What do you want to ask coordinators? It can be Julian Sayin if we start getting him during the middle of the week. But Stefan, I'll let you take the floor first. What is something interesting on your mind that you're intrigued about getting an answer about heading into Texas this week?
I think so much of the offseason, this kind of goes back to what you alluded to there. So much of this offseason has been who's the starting quarterback and what's that quarterback got to do to get the starting job. And, we knew what Lincoln Kienholz had and what Julian Sayin had. And it was like, okay, could Julian Sayin be the leader that this team needs? And I like that we're here now in game week because we can go away a bit from what does Julian need to do to win the starting job to like, what does it look like when Julian Sayin is under center, when he's behind center and leading this offense? And Steve Sarkisian brought up an interesting point when he was talking about Julian Sayin during his press conference, his weekly press conference on Monday. And keep in mind, Sark has recruited Julian in the past, right? He was at Alabama as an offensive coordinator before he got to Texas. And I think an interesting component that maybe we don't talk about with Julian Sayin is his running ability, his athleticism. I think with maybe part of it is how we talked about Lincoln Kienholz. Like Julian isn't the athlete that Lincoln Kienholz is, so maybe that made it seem like Julian's not an athlete at all. But that's not the case because when I spoke to his high school coach for a feature we wrote a couple weeks ago when he was named the starting quarterback, he also talked about kind of this sneaky athleticism that Julian Sayin had, and that's an important component because it goes back to and like we keep doing the C.J. Stroud comparison to Julian because there's so much there, kind of in the arm talent and the release and things of that nature, but C.J. Stroud wasn't this Lamar Jackson ultra running quarterback, but when he needed to escape the pocket, he could do it. When he needed to buy time, he could do it. He had enough athleticism to do that. And you talked about it before we started recording, Stephen, of C.J. Stroud's doing that at the NFL level. We're seeing him get out of the pocket and make some incredible throws. He just didn't do that a ton at Ohio State, but that was in his bag. And maybe Steve Sarkisian's reminding us of like, hey, Julian Sain's got great arm talent. But if Ohio State needs him to escape the pocket and extend plays a bit, he can do that as well. And that's an element that I want to ask Ryan Day about. It's just we haven't talked a lot about Julian Sayin's athleticism. We've talked about the arm talent so much. And now that he's in it, now that he's going to be facing Colin Simmons and Denai Dennis Sutton from Penn State and all these great pass rushers that he's going to face this season, are we not talking enough about the running ability of Julian Sayin? I'm not saying on 4th and 1, they're going to QB sneak it with him all the time like they did with Will Howard, right? He doesn't have the size of a Will Howard to, want to be running QB powers with him all the time like we saw in the national championship game against Notre Dame. But does he have enough? Can he do enough to where if Ohio State needs him to extend plays, he can do it? And I think that adds a whole nother element because we know what he can do with his arm. But if he's doing it with his legs too, that's when you start talking about a real dynamic quarterback who can make a lot of defensive coordinators struggle to sleep at night. Like that is a whole other element to his game that I think excites me about what Julian Sayin can be as a starting quarterback at Ohio State.
And I think it's different types of mobile quarterbacks, right? There are the people who are maybe more like the Justin Fields, the Will Howards and what they were, where they were designed runs in the game plan to have them run the ball versus CJ and Lincoln Kienholz seems to be more in that direction. While with CJ, it was mobile just meant he's not a stick back there. If Colin Simmons got loose, it's not automatically going to be a sack. And I do think given the opponent, given the newness on the offensive line, especially at tackle, that is important. Can Julian Sayin, he doesn't have to be Superman because he's got Superman on the perimeter and even in the backfield with him, right? But even Alfred's got to, gather things. Alfred's got to do a little bit more than just push a button, right? There is something to it. It's one of those things that you wish you could find out against Grambling State or Ohio, but you don't get to that You don't get that. You get to find out against Texas whether or not every time Colin Simmons is in the backfield, is it a sack or can Julian Sayin make something happen? And all of a sudden, a play that should have been a 4-yard loss is all of a sudden a 17-yard gain.
Because even when Will Howard had first gotten to Ohio State, Ryan Day wasn't talking about running a bunch of QB power with them. He was saying, without trying to bash the guy before, he was saying, hey, Kyle McCord couldn't move a ton. Like, we need someone who could be more mobile than that. And I think Julian Sayin is.
So mine is on the other side of the ball. I really wish we were talking to the coordinators. I'm a little shocked we're not, but maybe Ryan Day's perspective will be interesting because he's an offensive coach who has been a play caller for a long time. If you remember that Texas game from the Cotton Bowl, it wasn't the receivers who were having a field day in the passing game. It was Jadon Blue who had the 2 touchdown catches. It was Trey Wisner who returns as a 1,000-yard back. Both of those guys had more than 35 catches last year. Gunnar Helm is off in the NFL now, but they've replaced him with Jack Idris out from California, who's had 91 catches for 1,000 yards the last year. So it's the guys in the middle. We're talking a lot about Max Clare and the security blanket he might be, and whether or not James Peoples and C.J. Donaldson are going to be involved in the passing game the way we saw Sean and Trey be involved in the passing game. Okay, young quarterback on the other end who might use them the exact same way. The tight ends and the running backs were 3 of the top 4 receiving getters for Texas last year, alongside 1 wide receiver. From Ryan Day's perspective, really of a coaching perspective in general, is we've talked a lot about these linebackers and how good they might be, how athletic they might be, and their ability to get downhill, their ability to read and react. Can we bring Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese off the edge? I think a more important thing is seeing where Ryan Day feels about his confidence level in these linebackers from a coverage standpoint, because that has been a slow development for Sonny Styles. We haven't really seen Arvell Reese in coverage, and 14 points is what they gave up to Texas last time on 2 running back wheels, right? We saw Gunnar Helm get loose on some runs there. I think Caleb Downs is going to handle the tight end situation, which is why we think he might be the nickel. But the linebackers, what has Ryan Day seen from the offensive side, from that perspective? What have you seen when they've had opportunities to have the running backs involved in the pass game? Have we seen a better version of Sonny Styles, so we're going to talk to later this week as well, where he feels he is in coverage? Because if you're looking for ways that Texas might be able to poke holes in Ohio State's defense, it's the linebacker coverage. And if that hasn't necessarily taken a step, all that other stuff is great. You can get all the pressure in the world. All it takes is a couple of wheel routes, and all of a sudden Texas makes this interesting.
Yeah, it's so interesting to talk about kind of linebackers and coverage, because it is a very specific task that is difficult to do, because Sonny Styles, you would think would be perfect, right? Like, this guy was a safety. He should be a perfect linebacker when it comes to coverage. He struggled a bit in that area against Texas, right? Like, moving to linebacker and doing that task is not just as easy as being like, oh, he was a safety, he can do it, because it's different. It's a different perspective. It's different angles. I think Arvell Reese is, and I smiled because I'm the biggest Arvell Reese hype man, but like that is an element that we have to kind of see, because James Laurinaitis talked about, like, early in Arvell's career when some on the Ohio State staff thought maybe Arvell would be better as a defensive lineman, as an edge rusher, and James Laurinaitis was saying, no, keep him at linebacker, keep him at linebacker, keep him at linebacker. Well, C.J. Hicks ended up having to move from linebacker to defensive end because he struggled in coverage. He struggled with some of the other areas of a linebacker, and it's tough to do, and that is going to be part of Arvell Reese's task. I'm high on him. You're high on him because we think that can be an All-American guy, because he's going to get sacks this year. He's going to get tackles for losses. Like, he's going to do that. Okay, what about the other side of the game, though? Right? He hasn't been asked to do that a whole ton for Ohio State, even in his kind of third linebacker role for the championship team. So, yeah, I think that's great, because we've seen Sark go to that. Like, he likes getting his tight ends involved. He likes getting his running backs involved in the passing attack. And like you mentioned, for a young quarterback, that, like, Arch Manning he made a couple starts last year, but starting against Ohio State in week 1 of the 2025 season is a difficult ask. And is he going to be someone who kind of has those young tendency of, okay, find your tight end in the middle of the field, find your running back kind of in the check down areas. Like, it's going to be interesting to see if he leans on that a bit as well as a young starting quarterback. And that's where another element of the Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles tandem is going to be tested. And Peyton Pierce is going to be part of that as well.
And it's a thing of Texas is weirdly built to attack the ultimate unknowns about this Ohio State team in week one. And so maybe, I mean, there's a world that exists where you get a different version of that. You don't get the best possible version, right? Like Marshall maybe exposed some things that a better team could take advantage of last year with this Ohio State team. The middle of the field for Ohio State, I think right now there's a lot of optimism in what it can be, but that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect on day one. There's a lot of optimism about what Julian Sayin can be, but is he going to be all of that on week one? And if not, how much of it can he be? And can he be the things that are necessary to get them a win? Because then you can come up for air and we can have a different conversation, because they're going to have a couple of weeks before they play another competitive game. 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Get the text. Perfect time. I'm telling you, you got 2 weeks, man. You get a big game, and then you get a preseason game. It's a perfect time. I'm saying this is the best time to get the tech. I don't know if I could give a better pitch than there's a top 3 matchup on Saturday and then a follow-up game the next week for you to come get the tech. 614-350-3315. And go listen to Buckeye Talk wherever you find podcasts. We do this, but longer than 10 minutes. Sometimes it's a little too long. But listen, you'd rather have too much than not enough. And that's our slogan here at Buckeye Talk. That's Stefan. I'm Steven. You're watching this. We're about to go talk to Ryan Day and ask these exact questions to him and then provide you his answers in the text in your phone. Deuces.